Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is so exciting to be here this afternoon with you. Happy Friday. Um, I'll get started. Jump right on in. My name is Keisha Brown, and I am the host of the hour, right? So I am your host this evening or this afternoon. It is 12:30 on the East Coast, and I am the founder and CEO of Justice Connection. This afternoon, we have a real treat in store. We are joined by none other than Ben Wilson, lawyer extraordinaire. And if you've never met Ben, then you are in for a treat. If you have, then you already know. You got your notepad out, your pen, and you are ready to gather the pearls of wisdoms that he is guaranteed to leave with us this afternoon. So I want to be able to, I'm actually going to put it in the chat at some point, but Ben was managing partner of Beverage and Diamond based in DC. And they did an incredible write-up on him when he retired December of last year. And his bio reads like something that you want to create your own life map after, right? And he has received over 30 awards, legal awards primarily, really showing the depth and breadth of his impact on the legal profession. He was the first person I had to think of when I thought of a legend in the law. So I'm going to put that in the chat because I want everybody to read it. And I actually just finished reading Vernon Jordan's memoir, Vernon Can Read. And in one section of the book, he was receiving the Lifetime Award. I believe it was from the NAACP. And his mom was in the audience, and the presenter began to read all of his honorary degrees. And he interrupted her and said, "You don't need to read all of them, right? Like, we're good. You don't have to read all of them." And his mother afterwards said to him, "I didn't mind her reading them," right? And I just thought that was so perfect, right? Because, the person sometimes is like, nobody, and we all do this, right? When somebody's reading your bio and you're about to speak and you're like, nobody wants to hear all of that, or you don't want to feel like you're boasting. But it is so important, right, for us to know the impact and the accolades, quite frankly, that have been gathered by people, because that recognition is not just about getting that third party validation, which feels good, right? But it's about others being able to know that the work is being done, and they too can do that work, right? And take up that mantle. And I really hope that for those of you who are tuning in, that you too are inspired to do even more, right? Because Ben, as a legend in the law, has done it all. Has done it all. So I want you in the chat to really shout out where you're at, right? Like, my lawyers, I want you to be like, "Hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing." My non-lawyers, right? I want you to be able in the chat to shout out who you are and why you're there. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll definitely weave those into the conversation, because this is really about us hearing from a great, learning from a great, right? And that inspiration on this Friday, on the weekend of Juneteenth. Hello, people, right? We had to have Ben come speak with us as we go into this weekend. And, there's been so much going on about Juneteenth, from everything from watermelon Juneteenth to Juneteenth ice cream and Juneteenth plates. Shout out to Gracie's Corner, who did a new Juneteenth song. And if you've got a little toddler, you know who Gracie's Corner is. But what does it mean for us, right? And as professionals, as those who are listening in on Legends in the Law this afternoon, being inspired as we go into the Juneteenth weekend. So I'm gonna take a little bit and share about Justice Connection, right? And tell you about this company that I founded, and it's all about supporting Black lawyers in private practice. That's it. Right? That's the crux. It's about supporting Black lawyers in private practice, because I believe when Black lawyers are uplifted, it has a direct correlation increasing access to justice in the Black community in particular. Right. And so I think about Black families, I think about Black businesses, I think about Black people in corporations, nonprofits. We are everywhere. We deserve to be able to connect with a lawyer who looks like us, who's culturally competent to be able to dive right in on our issues. And quite frankly, for everyone else who's looking for dynamic, amazing, hardworking, inspired, seasoned, skilled lawyers, the Black lawyer is the way to go. The Black lawyer is the way to go. And if you are a Black lawyer, hello, then I want you to feel comfortable and know that we exist, right? That we are here, developed for you, and that we have so much to offer. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end as well. For no further ado, I am going to go ahead and welcome our featured guests to the stage.
Hi, Keisha. How are you today?
Hello, Ben. I'm well. And so, as folks don't know this, I love in my own head, I call him Uncle Ben, right? Because Ben has been such a tremendous mentor for me, right? Which is why I labeled him, as you saw in his in the promo graphic, as Master Mentor. Right? He is a master mentor, someone who advises, look, little old me as well as corporations, right? So he runs the gamut on who he advises. And so, I chuckled when I said, you've got your paper and your pen, but I meant it. Right. The first masterclass that we did at Justice Connection was on how to build a profitable network. And I went to you, Ben, and I said, what do you think? And he said, excellent topic. That's so important. And the next words out of your mouth were, you're always pitching, even when you think you're not. Right. And I had to write that one down, y'all. I wrote that one down, and it was in my promo piece for the masterclass, because that right there was a huge pearl of wisdom. And so, Ben, I want to start at the top, right? I want to start at the beginning, in your early career. What was it that made you decide to start law, right? Because you entered law school, was it in the 70s?
I did. I started law school in the fall of 1973, and Watergate was about to mushroom, and we'd come through the gas crisis. It was very much a challenging and different time. In terms of what motivated me to go to law school, my mother, Keisha, wanted a minister. And I didn't think I could be the example that a minister ought to be. And I think I might have been a pretty good emergency room doctor. I think I might have made a pretty good detective. But ultimately, I chose the law. I was influenced in part by the remarkable careers of the lawyers that I knew about and eventually got to meet. So I grew up in the deep South in Jackson, Mississippi, and about 250 miles to our northwest was Wiley Branton. And Wiley represented the 9 high school kids who integrated Little Rock Central's high school. And you're no doubt very familiar with this famous Norman Rockwell painting, little black girl in a pristine white dress, books and ruler in hand, a racial epithet scrawled against the wall, an errant tomato thrown at the bottom of the wall there, escorted to school by 4 headless U.S. Marshals. That case was brought by a fellow by the name of A.P. Turo from New Orleans. He was the only black member of the bar between 1937 and 1950. And but he brought that case. A little further east of where I lived was Fred Gray, who was in Montgomery, Alabama, and one of his clients was a young minister by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. At age 24, he was representing 25-year-old Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
And we ask ourselves, what were you doing at 24? And that's what Fred Gray was doing. You mentioned Vernon Jordan, a true giant in the law. And Vernon would tell you his great hero, were he with us today, was a guy named Donald Hollowell. In fact, Vernon apprenticed, if you will, with Donald Hollowell. He represented the students Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter Galt, who integrated the University of Mississippi, excuse me, University of Georgia. And then just north in Tennessee and Nashville, there was a fellow by the name of Luby, Looby. Mr. Luby represented the students from Fisk and Tennessee State and other universities who were sitting in, who were freedom riders, who were challenging the laws as they existed. But lest you think I'm forgetting the women, uh, the woman that I greatly admired, who was an attorney, was Constance Baker Motley. And I thought she represented James Meredith, who was integrating the University of Mississippi. And James Meredith's then wife was my student teacher. And I was in the sixth grade in 1962. And I'll never forget thinking that um, Constance Baker Motley must be 8 feet tall because she would do what no man would do. She would
Come
go to
on.
court and risk her life. And I was a little disappointed when I met her. She was at average height, a little stout, uh, but of course, a powerful mind. And I realized for the first time that stature had nothing to do with power,
Mm,
and that real power was substantive, and she was a powerful woman and a great uh, legal acumen and great performance. So those were the people that whose example I saw in the civil rights context, who I thought were real heroes, and um, and all of those people lived, with the exception of Constance Baker Motley, they lived in the areas in which they practiced law. So
mm,
Wiley Brandt was in the neighborhood in Little Rock and Pine Bluff, and Fred Gray was in the neighborhood in Montgomery and AP Turow and New Orleans and Donald Hollowell in Atlanta, Mr. Luby in Nashville. And so I greatly admired them because they did not have the fortune of being able to go back to Washington, D.C. or New York. They were they were in the community and could be found by people who wanted to do harm to them.
mm.
And so I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's real, right? Like we read, I mean, lawyers nowadays, right? They're reading about all of these folks, so I know that many of the names you mentioned sound are familiar, right? Because we Constant Baker Motley, all of these names that we've heard about. And so here you are in Jackson, Mississippi,
Yes.
right? Young black man who decides to venture into the law. And you started at a firm.
Well, so now when I'm in Jackson, I'm a little boy. I'm growing
Yeah.
up. My family left when I was not quite 16. My
Okay.
mother passed, and my family moved to Nashville.
Mm,
But after law school, uh, my wife and I moved to Atlanta. We were looking for a place where we could both have a career. And we thought Atlanta, Chicago, Washington, those were the cities. I wanted to go south, and I think Atlanta was about as far south as my wife was willing to go. You probably heard that apocryphal story of God speaking with Martin Luther King, and
mm,
Martin Luther King asked God if he will go to Jackson, my hometown. He says, "No, I'll go as far as Memphis," and but that's how tough Jackson was
yeah, yeah.
during a certain time period. But that's where we started. I started at a law firm there, King and Spalding, and that was a unique experience because here I was in the South, and there weren't many people at predominantly white law firms in that time period, many black people. And this was an era where we were all the first at our firms, a
Mm,
handful, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 of us. And we were like the blind leading the blind. We didn't know what to expect. I had an advantage in that my wife was practicing, and then as now, she was always smarter than me. And so we would compare notes and and get ourselves ready for the next day. And please.
yeah. So at this law firm, as one of the few black lawyers in private practice, right, at a large law firm, it's crazy how you know you we add a couple decades, and we're looking at similar situations, right?
Yes.
Where we're still, 2.2% of all partners at large law firms. And speaking specifically about Black lawyers in particular, um,
Yes.
I know that the Asian numbers have risen over the years, and even the Latino numbers have risen over the years. The Black overall numbers, right, for the legal profession have pretty much been stagnant at about 4.8% of the legal profession overall. And then um, at large law firms, still our numbers are very, very low. And
Very low.
so here we are where folks are still starting in almost a similar posture, feeling like they're starting from scratch, right? What is it that, I mean, in those early years, what was one of the most hardest challenges that you faced being at King and Spalding and even your other firm that you went to after?
Well, so there are many challenges, all of which will be familiar to those that are with us today. Um, Listen, I remember I was at a meeting. It's a true story, and an elderly gentleman used the N word, and he was telling the story of his great grandfather had been in the Civil War. He said the weather was bad; it wasn't safe for horses, dogs, or N words.
Wow.
And as you might imagine, that meeting became very quiet. And I recall visiting that gentleman's office and expressing my great um, disappointment, anger. He was elderly, and he begged my forgiveness, but it just didn't seem something that I could easily forgive. And I wanted him to know the gravity of his offense. And I wanted him to know it wasn't just me that he was offending, but all these people who had made sacrifices so that I would had the education that I did and the opportunity I had. Um, I can remember they would oftentimes have functions and locales where I wasn't necessarily comfortable, where we could not be members of those clubs on account of race. And but hoping to be comfortable, make myself comfortable, because I saw my goal is to hopefully break the barrier and make it easier for whomever might follow next. And I was not alone. Others did that, some far better than I ever did. And but that's how we saw it. But then, as now, there were always black lawyers who were developing their own practices, their own firms. There were black lawyers in government, state government, federal government, local government, and um, and so always, and so the dreams that young people have today, they're not new. They're just the most
Mm-hmm.
recent person that's had them.
Mm-hmm.
And um, but what I hope, you made a powerful point. You said it seems sometimes like we're starting all over. And so what I hope is that I might be able to leave a legacy that would allow people in your generation and people even younger than you, Keisha, to have a head start. So they would learn the rules of engagement that I had to learn. So they might uh, have organizations, affinity groups, organizations like Justice Connection that help them advance their careers. And so these are the types of things that I wanted to leave. And then when I was in a position to be able to recommend them for jobs or board positions, profit, non-profit, excuse me, for admission into various programs and clubs. I wanted to develop a newsletter, which we have, that will promote their careers and their successes, and so that people could start not from scratch, but they we could bequeath them opportunity, if
That's right.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, you as a, you rose to be partner of Beverage and Diamond, as I mentioned. And I'm fast forwarding y'all because um, uh, Ben has been with the DOJ. He was an associate at another firm, rose to partner there, and then really you planted your roots at Beveridge and Diamond, and so there you led teams on environmental law. How
Yes.
did you determine, or did you determine, like creating your own niche, right? Like environmental law, what was it about that like you automatically went there? Was it something you stumbled across? Because sometimes when we're in practice, you know, sometimes we're doing everything, right? Everybody's like, I can do everything, and you were very specific in creating your niche. I'd love to hear more about like how that happened.
Well, I must tell you, I was constantly looking for what would differentiate me.
Mm,
Yes. And so when I was coming along, there this was the advent of black mayors in big cities: Harold Washington in Chicago, Marion Barry in Washington D.C., Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, Carl Stokes in Cleveland, and the successful black lawyers in black-owned firms and in majority firms often did public finance work. And I wanted to do that work. I felt more than able to do it. What I found, though, was the generation of lawyers who were getting to do that were peers
okay.
for the most part of those mayors, and I was younger. And and when I went to law school, they didn't even teach environmental law until my third year, and so they taught something called administrative law.
Okay.
And years later, I didn't fully appreciate its relationship to environmental law, but there's a famous case called Overton Park, and it's about I-40, the interstate that starts in North Carolina, goes all the way to California. Well, one
Mm,
of the cities it goes through is Memphis, Tennessee, and they took parkland. And the question was whether or not the Department of Transportation, had to undertake an environmental impact statement. And Justice Thurgood Marshall,
mm,
writing for the majority, said they had to because this would have a significant impact on the environment. And Justice Thurgood Marshall was probably one of the few judges on the court at the time who'd been to Memphis, Tennessee. And he clearly understood the story behind the story, why the federal government would take park property where
mm,
there'd be little or no opposition, where the cost would be less, and they could take it and proceed. And yet he had the wisdom of making clear that some type of study was necessary before that was consummated. So I teach that now at Howard Law School, teach that case, but I understand it today in a way that I did not understand it almost 50 years ago.
wow.
Um, so I stumbled into environmental law. My theory, though, was that if I was good at it, people might remember me because there were few people who looked like you and me who were practicing environmental
Right.
law.
Yeah.
And it turned out I was pretty good at it. And so at the firm, so my first job was at King and Spalding. Then I was at the Department of Justice, and I learned how to try cases. I wanted to dribble the ball with my head up. I wanted to play the piano without the music in front of me. Have you ever seen a musician who's that proficient?
Yeah.
Or the basketball player, we saw one yesterday, Stephen Curry, who can dribble it and not even look at it. And that's what I wanted to be like with the law. And at the Department of Justice, they threw me in the deep water, and I would either drown or swim.
Hmm.
I could not describe what I did as swimming, but at least I didn't drown. And so when I came out, I knew how to write a dispositive motion. I tried cases. I could handle myself
Yeah.
in the courtroom. So, and I think that was helpful. And then I went to a small firm, and their largest case was a Puerto Rico Aqueduct and Sewer Authority. So it was an environmental case, and I was learning the Clean Water Act. But I already knew how to fight from my time at the Department of Justice. And then when I chose to leave that firm, I had a terrible accident, broke my neck,
Mm,
and I literally was looking for a job. And in fact, I was let go because the firm that I was with was having some economic problems, and And that was a very tough thing. I had a 2-year-old, my wife and I had a 2-year-old daughter, and I had to figure out what am I going to do next. And so I prayed about that, and fortunately, my health returned, and I must have written over 400 law firms. This wasn't the first time I'd done it, it was the second or third time. I can't say 400 rejected me because at least half never even responded to me. But I got rejections left and right. And uh, Beveridge and Diamond was one of the few that seemed interested in me. They were unaware that I'd written to them twice before and they'd rejected me twice before. But if at first you don't succeed, I think everybody knows how the rest of that goes.
Mhm, mhm.
And and so they had a municipal practice representing cities across the country in environmental issues. Now, not only am I seasoned, and but I'm not competing against that uh, veteran African American attorney who plays golf with the mayor because none of them does environmental. And environmental wasn't particularly sexy, but
Mhm.
they spent hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars on water and sewer lines. And what city hasn't tried to build an arena or a stadium on or near water, um, or a shopping center, that type of thing? So there were environmental issues all over the place, and over time, my reputation built and grew, and that's how that happened. So
Yeah.
so developing these basic skills, taking them with me as I move from one job to the next, and then dumb lucky finding a place that needed those skills, and and being able to differentiate myself from others, and and then respectfully, there's a time where you have to be very determined, where the outcome of the game is not clear.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the question is, what is your resolve? Or what were those little boys from Boston? New edition. Can you stand the rain? That's the question.
I
Uh,
know that's right.
I thought you might remember them.
Yeah. That was a good one, a good reference. But I want to thank you for your transparency and sharing one about being let go,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because we oftentimes in the law, and I've been let go, right? I was
mhm,
with one administration, a new administration came in, and
sure.
I was like, when I was at the AG's office, right? And I said, "Oh, but I'm just so wonderful.
That,
Clearly, I'm
that,
going to be kept on board." And they were like, "We got our own wonderful black woman we
that's right.
bringing in.
That's right.
Okay?
There's
We
more
don't
than
need,
one.
yeah, there's more than one. We don't need two. So you can go, right?" And I just remember, um, it's not something that we often talk about in the law.
No.
People don't talk about it in general, right? It's kind of it's something that's very personal. But as lawyers, when you look at anybody's bio, it never includes, right? I was let go here, I messed up there, and I
Right.
was rejected here. But I appreciate you sharing that because there are folks listening who have been let go, who
Right.
don't include that in their story because of feeling shameful or frustrated or wondering how others will receive them. Is it a bad mark on who I am as a lawyer, as a person, as a professional, and my potential? But it's real and it happens.
It's very real, and failure is not final. That's the one thing those of us that are believers understand, that failure is not
Hmm.
final. That's the whole point of the resurrection, right? And if he defeats death,
I'm gonna write that one
my
in.
goodness, that's the ultimate upset of all time. And so, uh, and so we have to understand failure is not final, and we're not going to allow one person, one experience to define our life or our career. Who among us hasn't had a relationship that didn't work out, a job that didn't work out, a um, who among us hasn't made mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we contribute to our problems. I certainly have contributed to mine, but um, uh, but there's an opportunity to take uh, failure or sometimes unfair treatment and use it as fuel uh, to propel yourself onto something even better.
Yeah.
And so I believe that God has a plan for everyone. And sometimes what we thought we wanted or what we needed, or the person we thought we wanted and needed, is not the right person, or that
Yeah.
job is not the right job. And there are other opportunities for us. And I've certainly been a beneficiary of that thought
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. No, amazing. And also, Ben, that you shared the hustle,
Oh yeah,
because on the other side of that, right, is we, again, we see the bio and we see the accolades, but 400 and give or take, right? Being able to put yourself out there time and time again and be ghosted, not hear back, get the
yeah,
rejections, right? Go to the same firm more
right,
than once with here I am, here I stand.
right.
Um, there's a level of grit there, right? That you've got to have to come ready to put yourself out there because you know inside that you've got what it takes.
Well, you used a very important word, grit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I happen to believe that resilience
Mm,
is the most important human quality. And the difference between the people who succeed and those who don't ultimately is grit, ultimately is resilience.
mhm.
See, because bad things happen to good people every day. Who here hasn't had a friend that's been in an automobile accident? They were in their lane doing everything they should do, and someone shifted and crossed the lane. And now their automobile is totaled, or now they have a worse yet, they have a very serious injury, et cetera, et cetera. So um, those things are part of life, but it's not what happens to you; it's how you choose to respond to it
That's right.
that matters. And so again, um, and then in terms of hustling, I became the chairman of my firm, not because of my intelligence, as you can see, or my good looks, as you can
He's humble, y'all.
see.
You hear him,
But,
right?
but, but I
Humble.
had to hustle.
Yeah.
And then I had to invest in other people. And so uh, it doesn't take a lot to say, Keisha, will you help me? Will you send me some work? But once in a while, you should say, Keisha, what can I do for you? And uh, and if your spirit is such that you're genuine in asking that question, and you
Mm,
ask that question without any expectation of something in return, almost always you're going to get a pleasant surprise.
mm,
And so years ago, I began helping people who were looking for a job opportunity. And when they got there, almost without fail, they made it their mission to figure out a way to use me. So I'm an environmental lawyer. So let's say I help someone who is an employment lawyer find an opportunity. She or he would speak to the environmental lawyer at their company and say, Ben's a great guy. We should think about him. And so they used their capital to help me, in part because I'd use mine to help them.
yeah.
And I did that without any expectation of something in return. And I started keeping a list of all the people that I made in alpha order by company, by city, by state or local federal agency. So that if I had a friend that was going to Savannah, Georgia, they can reach out to the 20 people I knew. Or if they were going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Washington D.C., and and it's proven helpful for many. And that's what we've tried to do with our network. No one knows everyone; everyone knows someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I may not be the right person to help a young woman or young man who's, say, pursuing a career in trademark or intellectual property. But I have friends who do that work, both in the government and outside the government, and are absolutely superb. And so I send them to those friends. And and when they have someone that they feel I can help, they send them my way. And I never say no, Keisha, because I know what it's like to be without a job. I know what it's like not to know what you're going to do next, and yet having to get that done because there's somebody at home that's counting on you, a spouse, a significant other, a child, a parent. And so we have to deliver.
Yeah.
We have to deliver.
So you talk about essentially this is your network, right?
Yeah.
And um, how crucial was having, I mean, in building your network, right? To just, hey, these are people I know, these are people that I want to be able to connect if they need anything, or be able to make an intelligent sort of connection and informed. And how has that benefited building a network? How has that benefited your practice?
Well, let's see. I don't think I could measure it adequately, but um, I had many clients at my firm at the end of my practice, and many, fortunately, remain with our firm. But um, if I there was a young man who didn't have a job. He just finished law school, and he wanted environmental, and he wanted to go to New Jersey. He was from Guyana by way of New Jersey. So he had an immigrant's mentality, work ethic, very hardworking, and he. So I showed him my list of people at that time, about 35 in New Jersey. This is before the internet. He called and wrote everyone, and sure enough, he got a job. He got a job with AT&T, then the largest company in the world. But my chance of doing work for them, my chances were slim and none. My wife's firm had represented them since Alexander Graham Bell first picked up the telephone. And my friend was the 31st environmental lawyer. So in sports parlance, he was 31st string. But an interesting thing happened. The largest company in the world at the time became three companies: Lucent, NCR, and AT&T. And numbers 1 through 30, they either took a early retirement or went to Lucent or NCR. And number 31 became number one. And guess who he hired to do all of their work? And then they invented something called a cell phone, wireless. And he went to their wireless company. He hired me there, and then he hired me at a oil and gas company. And he hired me at another company. So following the golden rule that we're
Mhm.
all taught in Sunday school, right? That grandma puts us on her lap and she tells us how to treat other people, uh, resulted in me having not one but four clients in the top 30. Two of them were of those four were in the top 10. One was in the top five. So that's one person. And if I've done that once, I've done that hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And hopefully what I've done is in return, if either for that person or others, uh, hopefully I've responded in kind. And and that's the other thing. The person that I may assist may not be able to help me, but they may be to help Keisha or Robert or Mary or George or Tamika. And so the point is, uh, there doesn't always have to be something in it for you.
Yeah.
And so that's the approach uh, we have taken for the last 40 plus years. And I've been blessed many, many times over. And, but I'd made up my mind I was going to do what was right no matter what, without regard to something coming back. Now, but it's nice when something comes back. And,
Indeed. So, I mean, look, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm like, what minute are we on? Because I know I'm coming back to that segment, right? And run that back because you saw those connections and how that came back around. Yes. It's the gems that we knew we were gonna get, y'all. This is I know you over there, just Henry on LinkedIn said words of wisdom reminds him of Proverbs chapter 4 verses 5 to 7. Get wisdom, get understanding. Right?
yes,
Wisdom, get
yes,
understanding. Um, so I wanted to circle back, and it's connected to your network, but um, about the piece you told me about how you're always pitching, right?
yes,
And let me tell you, I keep that running in the back of my head, literally, especially as I'm building this network with lawyers and having conversations. And I love to connect with folks. I always am like, hey, let's explore synergies. Let's see how we can support one another. And I actually hired a sales strategist, if you will, right? And she's always imploring me, like, Keisha, I know that love to connect with folks, but bring it back, right? Bring it back. You're always pitching, right? And so, and it reminds me of that, of the point that you made around how we're always pitching. So, as lawyers, especially in private practice, and for those who are listening who aren't lawyers, right? And how we present ourselves and when we're connecting with folks, this notion of always pitching, right? Even when you think you're not. I'd love for you to just touch on that.
Well, first of all, in the legal business, think about what we do. People are buying our trust, right? They are purchasing a home, they need a lawyer. They're adopting a child, they need a lawyer. They're getting a divorce, they need a lawyer. They are drawing up a will, they need a lawyer. They feel like they've been discriminated against, they need a lawyer. And they're not just going to pick anyone, they're going to choose someone that they trust.
Right.
And so when you're making that speech for a bar event, when you're speaking on Women's Day at the church, there's somebody watching. There's always someone watching. And how you carry yourself, do you walk the walk or just talk the talk?
Mm.
People know the genuine article. And I have found that people really pay attention when things don't go your way. How's he going to act now? How's he going to behave now? Right? And that's the test of our faith.
Yeah.
When we don't have the blessing that we want, do we still have the belief?
Mm.
And so that's all. And what I found is eventually, if I stick with it, it comes my way. True story. There was a woman who did not like me. In fact, I would say she hated me. And I'm a little bit like Hakeem Olajuwon. I have more moves than him. And somebody will remember Hakeem the Dream. But in any event, she didn't like me. And I was sitting there one day, and so I'd really given up. And she was telling me about her husband, and her husband was a coach at a university, and I had a cousin who was a coach in that same city. And then uh, and she asked me, she says, look, would you consider speaking on the program? And I was like a homeless man who's being asked if he would like, a sandwich, a hot sandwich. And I tried to pretend I wasn't hungry, just like that homeless man. But I said, I'd love to speak.
Yeah.
And I said, do you need a sponsor? She said, yes. I said, I'll be a sponsor. I said, do you need other speakers? She said, yes. I got her 3. Do you need other sponsors? I got her 3. So she went from hate to love.
Mm-hmm.
Love, but love.
Mm-hmm.
And later she became in charge of litigation for a major company. And she said, we need to talk. She had her conspiratorial voice. She said, let's meet for breakfast. She said, what did I say? She said 8:30. I said 8 o'clock. And I got there early and we talked. She told me what I needed to do. And we've remained friends
Mm.
for years. So what I'm telling you is that in your lives, you're going to meet these people who do remarkable things, but they may not be so remarkable at the time. I always ask young people, do they know what Barack Obama was called in high school? Do you know what he was called?
Barry?
Barry,
Yeah.
correct. So I'd like you to imagine, if you remember your senior year in high school, who was
Mm-hmm.
your best friend?
Senior year, Nikki and Dion?
Okay, Nikki, Dion, and you are sitting in AP Physics.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know where you're going to college. You're the bomb. And in comes this 10th grader who
Mm-hmm.
has the Urkel glasses on, the high water pants, the white socks. And you poke fun at him. You make jokes at his expense. Dion, on the other hand, says, he's got this weird sense of humor. and she doesn't like him, but she admires him, and she says, and by the way, he's new to the school. He's in the 10th grade, and he's taking AP Physics, and we're all going to college next year. Which one of you was invited to go to the opening of the Obama White House last night? Dion, of course. And so the point of the story is, if you want to have dinner with Barack tonight, you have to be friends with Barry in the morning.
Come on.
And so we're all ugly ducklings, and we become swans, beautiful swans. And sometimes it takes us 2 or 3 iterations. Uh, and so, but you can still talk to Barry. He's not yet Barack. He's not just famous. And by the way, Barry's hungry for friendship. We all are. And don't let anybody fool you.
Yeah.
And so if you go back to the old high school, if you go back to the old college, the old law school, there are Barrys and Barinas that maybe we have been rude to or mistreated or
Mm.
misunderstood. Or we had some petty jealousy with them or they with us. And I say, get over yourself, fix that. Because Barry can help you just as you can help Barry.
Yeah.
Life is very short. So, and my final story that I often tell, and I share this with you, uh, Denzel Washington once made a movie in our area, and my wife and the other middle-aged women made cookies for him. And I always ask everyone, why didn't she run off with Denzel? The answers range from, well, he was married. No. Her cookies weren't that good. No, her cookies are great. And the answer ultimately is that he didn't care about her, and I do. And that's important because I can't beat Denzel on looks, right? I can't beat him on intelligence. I can't beat him on fun, but I can beat him on caring. And we know what caring looks like, don't we? It
Mm.
means when your mother is in the hospital and dying of cancer, your friend is there with you. It means when you meet this love of your life, your friend throws you a shower. It means when your beautiful baby is born, your friend gets just the right outfit for you. It's someone who cheers for you and cries for you and is for you.
Mm.
And if we show that, what happens? The worst thing that happens is we have a friend. The best thing that happens is they will choose you, even though the other lawyer is smarter, Denzel, better looking, Denzel, more fun. Why? Because Ben cares about me. So it's nice if you're the smartest, but my experience has been there's always somebody smarter.
Mm.
It's nice if you're the best looking. My experience is there's always somebody better looking. Nice if you're dressed nicely, but there's always someone, wow, that is a nice suit. That is a nice dress. But do they care about you? And so that's what I try to demonstrate, the genuine caring. And again, we end up with friends. And it requires a little extra investment of time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're driving to Baltimore
Mm-hmm.
for business, you can say, let me get in the car and go home. Or you can call your friends in Baltimore and say, would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like this? Might we talk about that? And you can just go to the game, or you could say, hey, would you like to come watch the game with me? It'll be fun. Or you're having a picnic and there's 20 people, you call the 21st person. Hey, you got something better to do on Saturday? Come on and hang out with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
people remember those things.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't remember where you graduated in your class, right?
Come on. That's right.
And but they will remember when I needed a friend, did this person extend her hand?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those are the ones. Uh, uh, those are the examples of the types of things I've attempted to do. And what we find is that after a while, it becomes a way of life. It becomes a good habit,
Yeah.
uh,
Hello.
a good thing. And not all
Mm-hmm.
habits are good, but some are good. And then if you can see the connections in your life, social, religious. work, and see the interconnectedness, family, of all of those things. Um, and life is far more pleasant. The time goes by faster, and and your depth of your enjoyment is far greater when you invest in other people.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Awesome.
so
Awesome.
those are my thoughts,
Yeah.
and um, we started our diverse lawyers network. It was going to be partners, but I didn't want it just to be law firm or just partners, because I know what it means to not be wanted to be a part of a club. I'm I'm sure I'm the only person, but some of us know what it's like to be told we're too thin, too short, too tall, too fat, too light, too dark, too whatever. And I don't want that in my life. And we have over 6,000 people that get our newsletter every week. Somebody wins a case, somebody gets a promotion. I want someone other than their mother to know about their success. We publish over 300 live legal jobs each week on our website, and the cost is zero to publish, and the cost is zero to apply. And the whole point is we want others to have the same opportunities we have enjoyed. And what is the price of that? For them to pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
And the only thing I've ever asked of someone else is what my favorite character does in my favorite movie. There will come a time when I will ask you for a favor. But I never ask for myself. I ask for another person who looks just like that person,
Mm-hmm.
except she may be 5 years younger, or he may be 4 years older, but they've gone through something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my judgment that your experience, your time, your advice will make a difference in that person's life.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Ben, we've been getting that's a word, truth. Thank you very much. Words of inspiration, right? The feedback from folks who are tuning in this afternoon.
thank you.
Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you, and for those who have any questions, now's the time to put it in the chat. But what is your opinion of the state of the Black lawyer, right? What are your thoughts?
Well, so let me say this. I think the state of the black lawyer is not that different than the state of the black family, the black mother, the black business, the black anything.
Okay.
We're always fighting to survive, but we're always being counted out. And inevitably, like Maya Angelou would, would remind us, still we rise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just, we have this resilience, we have this grit. I started our group, our diverse lawyers group. I was inspired by Paul Robeson. You may recall, he wanted to go to Princeton University. His
Hmm.
father was an AME minister, and they went to Princeton, and they sat outside the president's office, and they wouldn't speak with him. So he decided to go to Rutgers instead. He was a Walter Camp All American in football. He was Phi Beta Kappa graduate at Rutgers. But most people don't know he actually practiced law.
Right.
And he was with a Wall Street law firm. And he quit the practice of law when a stenographer refused to take dictation from an N word. Most people don't know how he paid for law school.
Hmm.
On the weekends, he worked in a fledgling organization that became the National Football League. And so my theory was, if this man, uncompromisingly black, powerful, brilliant, beautiful bass baritone voice, if they could treat him that way, I know what they could do with little old me. And um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we have to stick together. That's why Justice Connection is important. If you want to grow your practice, you want to build it, Justice Connection is a connection you need to have. And but we need to be connected with each other. So that those are the things that I would say. And I would also like to offer, if people wish to reach me, my email address is benfwilson@outlook.com. If you'd like to receive the newsletter or have your information on our website, it doesn't cost anything. But send me an email, and I will respond and explain to you what you have to do to get the newsletter, what you have to do to get yourself on our website, and um, and then you do that yourself, no cost. And people want change, but they have to be willing to take that first step to change.
Yeah.
Someone wants to read, well, that means they've got to go to school. And we had ancestors who walked miles to
Come
go to
on.
school. They passed a white school that was well furnished, had all the books, all the labs, to go to a one room schoolhouse that didn't have an indoor toilet. Um, so that's the history of our people.
Yeah.
Still, we overcame. And so I just, but somebody has to make that move. Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. And I think that's a heck of advice.
Yeah.
Uh, and anything that Martin Luther King said, uh, he understood life in a way that people, very few people have ever understood it.
Mm.
And another of my heroes, Jackie Robinson, said, a life is unimportant except in the impact it has on other lives. So we can all ask our questions, ask ourselves the same question in the privacy of our own room.
Mm.
Uh, what impact am I having on others? And is it positive? And what are two or three small things that I might do to have a greater positive impact?
Yeah.
And I think if we ask ourselves that question and answer it fairly, uh, I think we'll all find there's something else we could do or something we could do better.
Yeah.
And I hope we will, because I believe in woman and man's capability of getting better. And uh, we don't have to be what we were yesterday. We don't have to be what we are today. We can be better. And but thank you for this time today. I really and truly enjoyed it. Will this be recorded at all, or
It
good?
is. It is recorded. And trust you me, folks are going to be replaying this bad boy. Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn, subscribe to Justice Connection on YouTube. I mean, this is, I know that there are certain points where I'm like, I need to come back. I need to get that quote. I need to meditate on this because, as expected, you are so generous in being able to share your story, your thoughts, your testimony in a way, Ben, that is just so inspirational and motivational and really just allows folks to think and process what you're saying and how they can apply it to our lives, to our careers. I thank you so much for your time this afternoon. What a blessing it has been to be able to
Well,
be in
thank you,
conversation with you.
thank you. But know that we inspire each other, and I am as inspired by those that I may be helping in a small way as perhaps as they are helped. And so it is, and we need each other. That's really what it's all about. And the longer you live, the more you understand that. The people who really excel get that early.
Mm,
Interdependency of others, and how we all need each other. But thank you for this. Thank you for what you're doing. This is Justice Connection is making a difference, and people should make it a part of their lives. So
thank
you
you.
have a great day,
Thank you.
and I wish everyone else a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Uncle Ben. I appreciate you so much. So
Back
much.
at you.
All
Back
right.
at you. Take
Take
care. Bye bye.
So I told y'all, amazing, right? Amazing. He is so generous, so thoughtful. Definitely, share this and replay, right? I will be replaying it as well myself. I invite those of you who are non-lawyers to subscribe on our website. Keep in touch with us. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whichever is your flavor. We send out newsletters that only have legal information and sharing about how we can better serve the community in the law. Right? So it's all about educating and empowering folks in the law. And for those Black lawyers out there who are listening, if you are in private practice, we are more than happy to have conversation with you on how we can support. Right? How can we support you? The top areas of law that our lawyers practice are personal injury, criminal, family, business law, employment law, and estate planning. So if you practice any of those or even beyond, we get lawyer inquiries, and we'd love to be a support, a resource for you in your practice. Those of you who are at large law firms, I go and I give presentations on diversity, equity, inclusion, and how to strengthen, whether it's building a profitable network, overcoming microaggressions, and other customizable workshops on how we can make sure that even in large law firms, right, it's important for no matter where we are to be in environments that foster us thriving and succeeding and making impact, as Ben said. So I thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Don't be a stranger. Definitely connect, follow. I'm always open to making connections and partnering and seeing how we can move forward. As I mentioned earlier, we have two more legends in the law, Billy Murphy and Barbara Arnwine. You see, I went with the BBB, right? I love the iterations. So we started off with Ben. Next month, we'll be with Billy. Billy is a Cancer like I am. That's, for all of my Cancers out there, shout out to some. And Ben, oh my gosh, this is why, I shout out to all the Cancers in attendance today, right? So Ben is a Cancer, I'm a Cancer, Billy's a Cancer. Now I got to find out if Barbara is, because if so, then it's the perfect trilogy. But Billy is a powerhouse. He's based out of Baltimore. You may know him for getting one of the largest police brutality settlements for the Freddie Gray family in Baltimore City. And he's a mentor of mine as well. So we'll be speaking with him on July 15th, 12:30. Save the date. I'll be putting out an event calendar on LinkedIn, so you can RSVP there, so you can get reminded. Thank you so much for all the feedback that everyone shared in the comments. I appreciate it. Please continue to comment, because let me tell you, the algorithm is real, right? So if y'all don't comment when you see Justice Connection, the algorithm gods be like, I don't know if we should send this to anybody. So always comment, like us. We'd love to see your feedback, and we're just really happy to be able to be of service to the community, because it's all about educating, empowering us in the law so that we can make better informed choices. And sometimes you need a lawyer, sometimes you don't. And when you need a lawyer, we want to be here to assist you with that process. For now, it's 1:34, so let's bounce. Have a good weekend. Enjoy Juneteenth. Liberation should be on our minds, and how, as Ben said, we can make powerful impact. Take care. Usually I play a little music, but I'm just going to do a little dance myself and have the music in my mind playing. Take care.